Hello again, Thomas and Friends fans. This is the Impertinent Scallywag 64, back for another Thomas and Friends critique. After looking at the disastrous Stuck in Gear last week, I was in the mood to watch a really good Thomas episode. I decided to revisit Duncan Gets Spooked, as it was one of my favorite episodes as a child. And what can I say other than it does not disappoint? It still holds up as a great episode to this day, which is really impressive to me. So today I thought I'd watch it and share my opinions about it with you guys. So without further ado, let's get right into my critique of Duncan Gets Spooked.
The little engines were busy clearing their railroad of leaves and broken branches.
Alright, we're only one sentence into the episode, and this is already 1,000 times better than Stuck in Gear. Most notably, the Scallywag Railway, as always, is the most beautiful place ever. And Mike and Junior's theme for it is just a blessing to the ears.
Peter, Sam, and Rusty often worked together. One day, Rusty helped Peter Sam to a water tower. Peter Sam...
Whoa, slow down there, Alec. Was Rusty just chuffing like a steam engine? He's a diesel, though. I might be crazy, but I swear I heard a chuff 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 as he backed away. Just listen to it one more time. Yeah, that's definitely a mistake, but I'll just let it go, because everyone makes mistakes. Anyways, Alec Baldwin, what were you saying? Something about Peter Sam, I think?
Peter Sam felt much better after his long drink, but the freight cars were bored. Let's break away. Their loads were heavy, and the couplings old. One snapped. Faster, faster, shouted the freight cars. A sign read, "Slow steep bends and ravine ahead."
I've always hated the way Alec Baldwin delivered that line. The sign is telling the engines to go slow because the bends are steep. But the way he reads it, it makes it sound like the bends are both slow and steep, which I don't believe was the original intentions of the sign, but oh well. Does that make sense to anyone else, or just me? Probably just me. Okay, let's move on.
But the silly cars never saw it. Then, it was too late.
Oh my gosh, that crash is one of my favorite crashes from the TV series ever. It's so cool the way the trucks fling over the side of the bridge and then plummet into the disgusting waters below.
Peter Sam arrived at the scene of the disaster. His driver sighed. "This was our fault. We didn't secure them properly. We'll have to get help to pull them out." Sir Topham Hatt will be very annoyed. And he was. "You will work in the yards until I can trust you again." Duncan was delighted with Peter Sam's dilemma. "Fancy not securing your freight cars on a hill. They'll come back to spook you and your special funnel." "Woo!" "And who's to say you're not afraid of ghosts?" snapped Rusty.
Why does Rusty bring up ghosts at this point? Are we meant to assume that those trucks, died? And that they're gonna haunt Peter Sam now? I guess. That's something I never got as a child, but makes sense now, I suppose. Either that, or it's just a lazy segue into the actual meat of this episode, which is, the ghost story.
"Ghosts? Things that go bump in the night? Rubbish! Well, I'll tell you a story that will make your funnel quiver," Rusty said. A long time ago, a little engine was returning home.
Just want to put it out there that this scene is absolutely perfect. I mean, just everything about it. Rusty's story, the music, and most of all the visuals. I mean, look at that shot with the moon behind the bridge and the fog rising. It is so spooky, especially as a kid when I was watching this. I was terrified. So yes, just sit back and enjoy this gem of a scene.
It was a misty, moonlit night. Suddenly, the engine lost control and plunged over the side into the swamps below. He was never found again, but Many a workman will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the little engine trying to get home. But he never reaches the other side. So what do you think of that, Duncan? Rubbish, replied Duncan.
How is Duncan not terrified? I definitely would be at this point. I guess now is as good a time as any to mention that I love Alec Baldwin's voice for Duncan in this episode. He often gets a lot of crap about being boring to listen to, but he definitely did a good job with this episode.
Never mind him, Peter Sam. He'd be frightened if he really saw a ghost. This gave Peter Sam's driver an idea. Let's play a trick on Duncan. The next day, he spoke to Duncan's driver and fireman, who agreed. We'll do it tonight. Duncan had to take coal cars to the slate mines and then bring cars back. Duncan's driver decided as part of the plan to cross the old iron bridge. Haunted bridge. Rubbish, snorted Duncan. It's as tame as a pet rabbit. But all the same, he kept thinking about Rusty's story. When dusk fell, he was keen to leave. If we don't go now, Scarloey will take my favorite place in the sheds. We have to collect our cars first, his driver replied. He could see their plan was working because Duncan was nervous. When night fell, they set off. The mists were rising around the old iron bridge. Duncan whistled, and the sound echoed everywhere. Then, ahead, he saw flickering lights. His driver knew they were only insects that shine brightly at night, but to Duncan they looked like an engine.
What? How does that work? These are fireflies, right? Like, does Duncan actually think a bunch of fireflies is an engine? Even as a naive little kid, I called BS on this scene. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. I've seen fireflies many times in my life, and they've never looked like a steam engine. But maybe Island of Sodor fireflies are magical or something like that.
Next, his driver secretly threw a rock from the cab into the ravine below. It's the ghost! Take me back! Take me back, please! When Duncan reached the safety of his shed, he closed his eyes tightly. Spooked, are you, Duncan? Laughed his driver. No, I'm asleep. And Duncan refused to open his eyes. He did, though, when he thought his driver wasn't looking, just to make sure that he was still there.
So that's Duncan Gets Spooked, and what can I say other than, wow, that is an amazing episode. I really have nothing bad to say about it other than a few nitpicks that I mentioned earlier in the video. So let's just get straight to all the positive things I have to say about Duncan Gets Spooked. The sets, the music, and the narration were all outstanding. The plot, while it may be pretty basic, it still works for this episode, because even though it's just another ghost story, personally it's my favorite Thomas and Friends ghost story. That's really all I have to say about Duncan Gets Spooked. Last thing I'm going to leave you with is my score, which is a 10 out of 10. I think this episode really deserves a perfect score. There's not much wrong with it other than the few nitpicks, and yeah, that's all I really gotta say. This is the Impertinent Scallywag 64 signing off. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.